Welcome to the April 2nd, 2024 regular meeting of the Ann Arbor Planning Commission. For detailed information on meeting procedures, please review the full printed meeting agenda provided. Ms. Kelly, will you please call the roll?
Certainly, noting that Chair Lee and Commissioner Adams had planned absences. Vice Chair Abrams.
Here.
Secretary Weish.
Here.
Commissioner Mills.
Here.
Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Here.
Councilmember Dish.
Here.
Commissioner Clark.
Here.
Commissioner Weatherby.
Here.
You have a quorum, noting that 6 votes are required for affirmative action tonight.
Thank you. We're moving on to item 3 on the agenda, approval of the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Commissioner Mills, seconded by Commissioner Weatherby. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Item 4 on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the March 5th meeting? Moved by Commissioner Dish, seconded by Commissioner Weatherby. Is there any discussion of the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Item 5 on our agenda. Next up, reports to the Planning Commission and written communications. We'll begin with a council report from Councilmember Dish.
Happy to provide it. There was a lot last night. First of all, there were 4 resolutions, exciting new policies with respect to economic development that includes, among other things, an emphasis on placemaking, and it chimes really beautifully with the piece that you sent us, Commissioner Mills. In the piece that Commissioner Mills sent us, it notes, it's a study, it notes that well-designed density, pedestrian-friendly streets with easy access to transit and amenities like shops, restaurants, and parks is positively correlated with well-being and happiness, but poorly designed density like very small apartments, scarce green space, and wide roads is correlated with decreased well-being. And I think that, so one of the resolutions emphasizes that we want to put placemaking at the center of our development. I think that we have been doing that in the way that we've designed the TC1 ordinance and modifications that we've made to it. And, you know, we are seeing placemaking coming about by where we are seeing greater density in the city, among other things, the wonderful Lower Town Coffee Shop and Bar. 2 of these resolutions are of particular interest to Planning Commission. One emphasizes the need to develop a housing at all income levels to achieve affordability goals and directs staff to recommend a number of procedural and ordinance changes to facilitate this. Some of these changes build on work that we have already done here to reconsider which approvals can stop at Planning Commission and which can be made by the planning manager. And so more things of that ilk will be happening. It's not only Planning Commission, though there's other parts of the city that will be asked to align their mission with the mission of moving housing projects through the city in a timely and efficient way. The second one of the resolutions that I think is of particular interest to Planning Commission is calls for creative thinking about incentives for sustainable development, which we've been talking about a lot. And it asks, and this will affect Planning Commission, for a definition of what counts as a fully electrified project and a definition of what counts as an energy efficient project. Both of these definitions need to be in place in order to determine when it is appropriate to award incentives. So that will be work that is likely coming to us. However, there's a lot that's laid out in these resolutions, and so there needs to be a prioritization and a consideration of staff capacity and possibly contract hiring to get this work done. Finally, Council approved 711 Church to proceed to second reading. Council did not disregard the staff memo or the deliberations that we had on Planning Commission. I did vote yes at Council. I have different considerations that I bring to bear when I am at Council than when I am here, but I would be happy to explain to any of you, not taking up any more of our time here, of my thinking about that project. So there we go.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly.
I'll also add to Councilmember Dish's report out from Council, if I didn't hear it, that last night the multimodal transportation impact analysis AKA transportation UDC changes, which were approved and recommended to council by this body, passed at first reading. Again, what the changes to that section do is simplify language and clarify what is already required in the city process. It changes all references to traffic to say transportation, or where appropriate make reference to multimodal transportation to emphasize that we're looking to impacts to pedestrians, bicyclists, transit users, in addition to motor vehicles. I have some other things to report. At the end of April, there will be additional workshops for the comprehensive plan. We had previously workshops in the downtown at the downtown library. These will take place more in the neighborhoods. There will be 3 additional workshops the week of April 22nd. More details will be published soon. And these will be held at the district libraries for Traverwood, Westgate, and Mallett's Creek. Again, with relative to the comprehensive plan, calendar invites will be coming soon to those of you who are on the comprehensive plan subcommittee of the Planning Commission. They'll be sent out by Manager Leonard shortly. They're planned to be for the 4th Tuesdays through the end of the year on non-ORC, Ordinance Revisions Committee months. That would be May, July, September, and November. So 4th Tuesday in May, July, September, and November. You should see some invites for those soon. The subcommittee's assignment discussion was on the agenda for this evening, but we moved it in particular because there are 2 commissioners who are not yet assigned, and one of them was not able to join us this evening. So that will be placed on a forthcoming agenda. At your 4-9 working session, the agenda will have a presentation based on requests from this body to have more understanding of how projects make it into the capital improvements plan, and to have some involvement, provide feedback in how that happens earlier on. Kayla Coleman will rejoin this body to give a preview of the updates to the capital improvement plan scoring criteria. You will also have at the 4-9 working session a pre-PUD conference presentation for 2271 South State Street. And last but not least, we are thrilled to announce that 3 new staff members, 2 planners, 1 administrative assistant, will be joining the department on April 15th. I'm not yet sure who, if any of them, will be attending the meeting on April 16th. I still have to ask them if they're free that evening, but you will get more complete introductions as you meet them in the near future. And if we don't have an early opportunity to do so in person, certainly we will circulate an email introduction so you know who our new faces are, and please give them some time to onboard. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's
We'll
it.
try. Any other commissioner, officers, or committee liaisons have anything to report? And I'll take note that there are many written communications included in this evening's packet. So we're moving on to agenda item 6, public comment. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about an issue not listed as a public hearing on this agenda. We'll first call on individuals present to address the commission, then remote participants. To speak during the public hearing remotely, press *9 if listening by phone, or use the raise hand feature if viewing through the web link. For phone access, call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 977-6634-1226. City staff will select callers who have raised their hand using the last 3 digits of their phone number or by name if available for those accessing through the web link. You'll hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area, mute television or background sounds so we may hear you more clearly. For either method of participation, please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Is there anyone present who would like to speak at this time?
Thank you, Vice Chair Abrams. Ken Garber, 28 Haverhill Court. Councilmember Dish mentioned the economic development resolutions that were approved last night. Among the procedural and ordinance changes to promote housing was one to get rid of Planning Commission public hearings for by right developments. I mentioned this in January. The purpose is to speed up the development process, and there's also some talk in the, or some writing in the economic development report about how this will make public comment better timed and more effective. But frankly, I find that ridiculous. It does move up the citizen participation meeting slightly and enlarge the notice for that. But to me, that doesn't substitute for eliminating the public hearing at this level. The resolution language specifies elimination of the public hearing requirement for site plans at the Planning Commission. However, Planning Commission meetings should be restructured to allow public comment for each site plan that appears on the agenda. That doesn't sound bad, but it is. First, it's not clear if these site plan comments will replace the kind of general comment period that I'm using now, or if we'll keep both comment periods. But the big problem for me is the notice requirement. The current minimum for public hearings is 15 days by state law. Once you get rid of the public hearing, it's not clear what applies. According to your bylaws, meeting agendas are to be available to the public the Friday preceding a regular meeting, quote, to the extent practicable, unquote. So that's 4 days' notice. 4 days is not nearly enough time for the public to prepare, at least not for me. And I don't think there's anything about agendas in the Open Meetings Act except 2 hours advance notice for certain electronic meetings. So if the Friday before is not practicable, maybe the agenda doesn't have to be posted until 2 hours before the meeting, or maybe not until the meeting starts. I don't know. Also, the bylaws allow the chair or any 3 members to call a special meeting. That only requires 18 hours public notice. Site plans, the bylaws say, can be considered at these special meetings. So once you get rid of the public hearing, as recommended last night, you open up all kinds of possibilities for very late or non-existent advanced public notice of site plans that might come here before the commission. I'm not saying this staff or this commission would do that, but future ones might. And anyway, 4 days is not nearly enough. So please keep site plans as they are now. You may have to decide soon on this. At last night's meeting, Assistant City Administrator John Fournier said he would meet with Mr. Leonard and Mr. Delacour this week to move forward on implementing these council resolutions.
Mr. Arbor.
Thank you. Is there anybody else present who would like to speak at this time? Ms. Kelly, do you see anybody remotely who would like to address the commission?
Vice Chair, I do not.
All right, we will close the public hearing. We'll move to agenda item 7, public hearings scheduled for the next regular meeting. Ms. Kelly.
At the Planning Commission meeting for April 16th, 2024, there are 3 annexations and zonings for City Council approval and 1 site plan for City Planning Commission approval. The first of the annexations is 444 Huntington Place, annexation and zoning for council approval to annex a .61 acre parcel, an existing single-family home in Ann Arbor Township, to the City of Ann Arbor, Zone R1B, single-family dwelling, and connect to utilities. The second is 110 LGB Way, request to annex a vacant .05 acre, 2,178 square foot parcel in Ann Arbor Township to the City of Ann Arbor in Zone R1B, single-family dwelling. Excuse me. And the final annexation, 3474 East Huron River Drive, request to annex a vacant 1.66 acre parcel in Ann Arbor Township to the City of Ann Arbor and Zone R1A, single-family dwelling, to construct a single-family home and connect to utilities. The site plan is 142 East Hoover Avenue. A site plan to redevelop a 25,613 square foot site with a new 5,719 square foot auto repair facility, the new building, and some of the 32 proposed vehicular parking spaces, along with required site improvements, will be constructed in Phase 1. The existing building will be demolished and the remaining proposed parking spaces installed in Phase 2. Site includes 142, 144, and 146 East Hoover Avenue, zoned C2B.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 8A. This is part of unfinished business. 416 Longshore Drive site plan for City Planning Commission approval. This is a proposal to construct a new 4-story, 15-unit condominium building next to an existing office building. The site size is 1.66 acres. The zoning designation is O for office, and the staff recommendation is approval. We'll begin with a 10-minute petitioner presentation.
Thanks. Is the microphone picking me up? Good evening. I'm J.D. Lindeberg, representing the owners of the site. Before I kick this off and introduce the project, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to hear our application formally, and I wanted to thank staff for a series of efforts that occurred over the last year in working out a variety of issues that were important to us, were important to them, and coming to a conclusion that seemed to work for everybody. So I want to appreciate the thoroughness with which we handled that. So like I said, I'm J.D. Lindeberg. My partner in ownership of this facility, Jim Fry, and I are owners of Resource Recycling Systems, a recycling consulting firm that is headquartered here in Ann Arbor and has been since 1985. We've been on this site since the mid-1990s, and we purchased it in early 2000s. And it is used as our headquarters for what is now the largest such consulting firm in North America. We have deep connections to the community, region, and state. Among our immediate families, we have many, more than half a dozen people with connections to the university, students, employees, whatnot. Jane Mills, who's with me tonight, my partner, retired after 30 years of a career bringing educational opportunities to non-traditional students throughout Michigan. And as part of that, led numerous building projects for satellite educational centers. In addition, Jim was an early leader for Recycle Ann Arbor and served as director of the Ecology Center in the 1980s. He and his spouse, Lisa Brush, were instrumental in the formation of the Leslie Science Center as a separate nonprofit. And Lisa co-founded the Stewardship Network in 2004 with support for University Botanical Gardens and City of Ann Arbor's natural area programs. Now that nonprofit is aptly described as the Nature Conservancy for everybody, and has spread through the coasts and across the Great Lakes into Canada. During my time in town, I built 100 units of greenhousing out in Scioto Township, was trustee of Ann Arbor District Library when we built 3 sustainable branches, and was the founding president of the Clean Energy Coalition, which, as some of you might know, was a spinoff from the Energy Office in the city of Ann Arbor. I mention this all not to say, hey, look at me, isn't this great? Look at us, isn't this great? But to say, you know, we are not sort of the fly-in, fly-out developers. We bought a piece of property many years ago. We invested in the city, and that's the property that we're proposing to make a development for right now. So let's talk briefly about that project features of that in front of you. They consist of 15 unique condominium homes that include artistic and exterior and interior treatments with substantial, like thousands of feet of outdoor living spaces overlooking the Cascades. And they have private garages and elevators. Some might view that as being ostentatious. It turns out that a number of our potential buyers are handicapped or have disabled children, for whom that's very exciting opportunity. We think our buyers will appreciate the privacy and luxury of living, high quality healthcare within reach, universal design for aging in place, and the surrounding natural, social and community features that you all enjoy and we all have come to enjoy in this town. I know that there's going to be some questions coming up about sustainability, and I want to say that we've been green from the start. The building site is actually a reclaimed dump. It's a former farmer's dump from many years ago. It's going to have numerous electric car chargers, one in each garage and on the site. Solar backup power, ground loop heat pump for HVAC energy, rain gardens, green roof, bike, kayak storage for use in the local area, energy-efficient windows, wall structures, and funded improvements to the neighboring Arbor Park, although, as you know, that's a voluntary contribution. The detailed designs for each of these features are ongoing, and I want to make that point. As an engineer, there's a lot of bridges we haven't crossed yet. And I want to be clear that the most mature part of the design so far is the site plan, the stormwater, and the things that, in particular, we're going to focus on tonight. So, a handpicked team of professionals was also intentionally chosen for their connection to the community. Hobbs & Black is our architect, represented by David Nims, will speak shortly. MCI, Ted Hirsch, who I'm sure you all know, because he's here frequently. Phoenix Contracting and Mark Heiser is our general contractor, and Lisa and Bryn Stelter from the Reinhardt Agency will be leading our sales team. So thanks. I'm going to pass this on to David. Look forward to hearing what he has to say and answering questions if you have questions.
Well, David Nims, Hobbs & Black, Architects, 100 North State Street, Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm here with Ted Hirsch. JD kind of took it away, and I don't know what else I really need to add to that, but we can go through some of the finer points as noted. We are on Longshore Drive, directly to the east of Arbor Park, directly west and kind of a little uphill from the Lower Town area that was mentioned earlier. There are, ongoing developments in that zone of town, as well as some older historic structures related to DTE, et cetera, in that area, some of the oldest structures in town. I think we're going to jump into the site plan if Ted wants to talk about some of those points.
Yeah, so just, Ted Hirsch with Midwestern Consulting, 3815 Plaza Drive, Ann Arbor, Michigan. So thanks for everyone being here tonight and considering this plan. Feel really good about this, what we have before you tonight. Pretty simple as far as the site layout here. The existing office building to remain at the east end of the property. There's an existing gravel parking lot that has opportunity for public parking at the moment. That will be eliminated in lieu of the new building. 2 access points that exist for that parking lot will be converted into the 1 access point for access to the garage level of the new building, the 15-unit condo building. There will be some improvements to the existing office parking lot just to the east of the existing building, kind of pulling it back away from Longshore Drive and behind the buildings, adding some landscaping per code requirements, improving stormwater management, of which there really is no detention or management system on site, utility connections and improvements that I'll talk about with this next slide. So a lot of kind of colors going on here. Green representing storm, orange representing sanitary, blue representing the water services and water main out in Longshore Drive. So all of this to say there's existing infrastructure readily available for connection for the new building. The existing sanitary sewer that crosses the west end of the existing property currently doesn't have an existing easement on it. It is public sanitary sewer, so with the project, we would be establishing a new public utility easement on that facility. The couple of green boxes, one beneath the new building, one beneath the existing parking lot to the east of the existing building. Those are both underground detention facilities. Infiltration testing at the site has uncovered favorable soils, so we have really got opportunity to kind of contribute to the sustainability of the site with that and provide a lot of the stormwater management with infiltration. So whatever doesn't get infiltrated gets stored in those 2 underground basins. Everything up to the 100-year storm is designed to infiltrate. And then for an overflow, there is a proposed kind of storm sewer main that follows the south edge of the property and then terminates in a proposed level spreader that would Again, this is only for overflow in exceedance of the 100-year storm, so we don't expect that there's going to be a whole lot of flow coming through that pipe. But if there is, that level spreader should help it disperse and flow to the west where everything kind of currently flows, but distribute that and dissipate the energy and everything to kind of mitigate any concerns with erosion heading onto the property to the west. Should mention that a portion of the site to the east is currently not under ownership of this development team and is proposed to be included and combined with the project.
That's the 10-minute alarm, but other questions will arise during our discussion, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move to staff presentation. Planner Thatcher.
Thank you. I have a few things to add that I'd like to point out.
You all can have a seat if you want, because we'll do public hearing, and then we'll call you back up if we have questions. Thank you. Thanks.
There is a landscape modification requested as part of this project. It's for a conflicting land use buffer along the west property boundary where it abuts Argo Park to be Argo Nature Area, to reduce the number of required trees and shrubs. That is to keep them away from existing utility conflicts and to preserve the critical root zone of a landmark tree that's already in that area. Let's see. Another point on landscaping is that a question came up at the last City Planning Commission meeting where we held the public hearing for this, but didn't go any farther. And that was about whether woodlands on the site were being removed. And I talked to the city forester about that. She said that the majority of the trees coming down are box elder and invasive Norway maple and tree of heaven. No parkland trees are being removed. And 106 trees are being planted back with desirable species, all of which are native to Michigan. Those look like a lot of trees on the plan, but that has been reviewed, and I've worked on other projects where the city forester has said you cannot put that many trees in one place, and she's okayed this one. So apparently they're going to give the trees the best chance that they have of survival and thriving. I think the only other thing I have is to, parks. Parkland contribution is being made by the applicants in the amount of $9,375. That is a voluntary contribution. And staff does recommend that the site plan with landscape modifications be approved. And staff also recommends that the development agreement be forwarded to City Council for their consideration with a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to the public hearing. So this is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about this item. We'll first call on individuals present to address the commission, then remote participants. To speak during the public hearing remotely, press *9 if listening by phone, or use the raise hand feature if viewing through the web link. For phone access, call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 977-6634-1226. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand using the last 3 digits of your phone number or by name if available for those accessing through the web link. You'll hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute television or background sounds so that we may hear you clearly. For either method of participation, please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Is there anyone present that would like to speak at this time?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Judy Nicolai. I live at 517 Longshore Drive. I live in the Crossings condominium community, which is right across the street from this site. I am also presently the president of the board of the association, although I want to make it clear that my comments are not official, but I've talked to many of my neighbors about this, and also quite a few neighbors who live in private housing in the area. And there are several concerns that come up centering around the idea that units of this size and at this price point are so out of keeping with the tone of our community generally, which tends to be a lot of renters even in our condominium. There's an apartment complex called Shoreview, which is just west of us, and many smaller homes on smaller lots. It's a very friendly community. It's a very relaxed community. I've had neighbors joke to me, you know, how can people who are going to be able to afford multi-million-dollar units going to like the idea that the freight train goes by at all hours of the day and night and blows its whistle as it crosses Pontiac Trail and Longshore Drive, and then the beach community atmosphere in the summer. I guess that the general sense is that we're not feeling that this is the appropriate type of housing for our community. And with one exception, everyone I've spoken with is not opposed to the idea of more housing in this area, but that it be low, moderate income housing. 4 weeks ago when I was here, there was a young man who spoke about the fact that so many younger people are not finding housing that they can afford to buy. And our community would be wonderful for that kind of housing. It would be very, very well suited. Especially because it's a great area if you would like to live without a car. I am Exhibit A. I have never owned a car in my life. It's great for busing in that area. We're near major bus lines. We walk everywhere. I worked at the health system for 12 years and walked to work and back. And so if there's going to be housing added in this area, it would be so much better to think of it as a place where people could get a foot and be part of a community of like-minded people who walk, who cycle, who recycle. And I have everything good to say about Jim Fry and the work that he does. But let's think about the bigger picture of the community, and low and moderate income housing here would be perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else present who would like to speak? Hi.
Hi there. Hi, my name's Mary LaDuke. I live directly across the project at 416 Longshore. So we're directly impacted by the construction of this development. I'd also like to say I'm a lifelong Ann Arbor resident. I'm proud to say that. I've also been in the development business for probably 35 to 40 years. So I have a lot of experience in Ann Arbor. Well, most notably, probably the one you all know of is the shopping center where Barnes & Noble and Whole Foods is located. So I have a lot of experience with planning, not with all of you, and with council and being here. I'm not here to object to this project. I know that they are entitled to by right approvals, and I've looked at the site plan, and I've looked at the design. I've worked a lot with Hobbs & Black, a lot with MCI in my career. They do a great job. I'm sure they've worked very hard with you to try and get the storm sewer retention thing all sorted out, because that's very complicated. The only thing I'm really concerned about are a couple things. One is that this site is so tight, I don't know how you're going to do the staging of the site. And how the heavy equipment and all the materials are going to be sorted. And Longshore is such a narrow street that, and you know, in the high season we have so much traffic that I just don't know how it's all going to be coordinated. I am very disappointed that we haven't met JD before this. My neighbors who are on either side of me have been in their houses for 50 years. I've only been in mine 2.5. They've been in theirs 30 or more. And I just think with a project that's going to be this monumentally impactful to our 4 single-family homes that are across the street from there, that it would have been nice to reach out and talk to us. And I would hope that when this goes forward, that there can be some kind of normal communication to reach out and let us know what's going to be going on, so we're not blindsided by everything. So, and Lisa's been great at helping us with all the Argo traffic that we have, which is just, you know, a monumental issue. So when we get all of that going on together, and plus, as they did say, the water all runs downhill. So as the heavy equipment's coming in and out, I hope the city would be mindful about all the dirt and debris that's going to be on Longshore that's just going to flow into the watershed, because we don't have any storm sewers. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to address the commission who's present?
Thank you, Vice Chair Abrams. Ken Garber again. I do know Mr. Lindeberg, and I respect him a lot. So I was very puzzled and disappointed to read to look at the site plan documents and to read the staff report, mainly because of the gas connection. It's not really clear from the documents, but I infer that gas appliances will be offered to residents. We just heard from Mr. Lindeberg that there will be a ground loop heat pump HVAC, which I'm relieved to hear. According to the staff report and the petitioner statement within that staff report, that was still in doubt. If that is now settled, I suggest that this be added to the development agreement as the kind of thing that you've been doing lightly to ensure that the sustainability features that are promised at this table are in fact enforced. Given the emphasis on the petitioner's credentials, which are genuine, and the sustainability emphasis of this proposal, I think, it's appropriate, it's fair to ask some detailed questions about these elements. There are, the drawings show a condenser farm at the garage level with 15 separate condensers. I'm not an expert, but I don't think that's supposed to happen with ground loop geothermal. It's a question I would ask. Maybe it is compatible with that system. Other questions I would ask if I were in your chair. How much solar capacity will there be? It looks like about 4,000 square feet of roof space dedicated to solar, which comes to about 70 kilowatts of power by my calculation, or about 6,200 kilowatts per year per unit, which for an all-electric building with EV charging would supply maybe, 1/5 of the annual demand? Again, these are just my back-of-the-envelope figures. I would ask the petitioner about this. Have they modeled the EUI, energy use intensity, of this building? That will give you a clue as to how energy efficient it is. I think the average for multifamily is something like 50,000 BTU per square foot per year. What does this come in at? Finally, most importantly, given the sustainability values and expertise of the developer and the very high unit price, which has been commented on, which will provide gross proceeds between $700 and $1,400 per square foot, why not build for Passive House certification, net zero energy, or even Living Building Challenge, which is net positive energy on site? I'm puzzled. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else present who would like to speak at this time? Ms. Kelly, is there anybody who would like to address the commission remotely?
There are two hands raised. The first is phone number ending in 942. You have permission to address the Planning Commission.
Hi, my name is Barbara Lucas. I live at 121 Wright Street. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I'm happy to see development in this walkable location. I'm a member of the Ann Arbor chapter of the Citizens Climate Lobby, and sustainability is very important to me. But I have two main concerns. The first is the question of full electrification versus the option of gas hookups. Making gas an option is not at all sustainable and doesn't reflect the stellar environmental credentials of the developer. My second sustainability concern is the size of the units. As you know, the number of people who live in a building determines the energy efficiency of each square foot per capita. For instance, if 2 people live in one of these condos, that's twice the energy consumption per capita as it would be if 4 people live in the same unit. Even though these are 3 or 4 bedroom condos, likely most of the units will only house 2 people, a waste of heated and cooled space. To prioritize sustainability, the developers would build more units on the same footprint at a more reasonable size, but that's not likely to happen. There is another option. Make the units easily convertible to include accessory dwelling units. We did this in our own house by adding a kitchenette and strategically placed doors to separate the living spaces, if and when so desired. We designed it this way to allow aging in place for our parents or for ourselves when we get old. We haven't had to use it for aging in place yet, but in the 14 years we've lived there, our house has held up to 5 residents, sometimes families, sometimes friends or visiting professors, depending on our family's needs at the time. I suggest that a high-end development, such as this, could and should incorporate flexibility to an owner-occupied ADU. Some may say they can always remodel later, but from my experience with my aging parents, changes in independence don't always come with ample warnings. Plus, it's far cheaper and more sustainable to build in flexibility from the ground up than to remodel. This suggestion complements the stated goals of this proposal, which call for following universal design tenets that incorporate flexibility. It would allow the proposal to live up to this aging in place mission, as well as to nearly double its potential energy efficiency. Thank you for considering my comments.
Thank you.
The next caller is phone number ending in 429. You have permission to speak. You may need to press *9 to unmute. Or is it star?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thanks. My name is Clark McCall. I live at 3355 Yellowstone in Ann Arbor. I'm a longtime resident of Ann Arbor. I would like to see the development at 416 Longshore be all electric. All electric developments are in keeping with Ann Arbor's forward-looking approach to city policy and provide strong support for Ann Arbor's goal to be net zero for energy by 2030. There's no uncertainty in what all developments will be very soon in the future, which is all electric, because we, responsible people on the planet, want to address the climate crisis. Billion-dollar homes that aren't built yet can better absorb the modest upfront premium of heat pumps for space heating and water heating and for drying. They can do this more easily than lower-priced existing homes. It's exciting that a community ground exchange heat pump will be implemented, if that's what I understood from what the comments from J.D. Lindbergh earlier. I'd like to think that those are going to cover all the units and that all the space heating and the water heating and drying will be accommodated through ground exchange heat pump. I'd prefer that there not be any gas hookups because I think this is just the forward-thinking approach to development. I'm encouraged that the developers have chosen to do the groundwater heat pump, and I appreciate their work towards sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no further callers.
Okay, I will then now read the proposed motion. The Ann Arbor City Planning Commission approves the 416 Longshore site plan with landscape modifications to allow a reduction in the number of plantings required within the 15-foot conflicting land use buffer along the west property line, as it complies with all applicable requirements of the Unified Development Code and other applicable laws, ordinances, standards, and regulations, and based upon the following conditions. 1, all parcels must be combined before issuance of any building permits. 2, the approval of and compliance with the development agreement. The Ann Arbor City Planning Commission recommends approval of the 416 Longshore Drive Development Agreement. Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Commissioner Weich. And we are now in discussion of the proposed motion. Councilmember Dish.
Thank you, Chair Abrams. Thank you for the presentation. Thanks, everyone, for the comments. Sorry. So I wanted to raise a couple of issues around sustainability and to elevate a couple of residents' concerns that we've heard tonight or I've heard otherwise. And then there was one concern also raised last time that Ms. Thatcher did not address, and that I'll bring up. So, and I will be quick. So, delighted to hear your credentials in the environmental community, and it is great to have folks like you doing ongoing work in Ann Arbor. And I am really happy to hear that it sounds like the ground loop heat pump HVAC is going to work. And I do understand, and I did hear you say, that detailed design for these energy efficient features are ongoing, so you don't yet know all your calculations. But I'm wondering if you could give us an idea, do you expect to get closer to net zero with this project, and how close would you be able to get? Because it isn't just, as we all know, electrification. It's electrification and energy efficiency. You can answer, yeah. This is the part where you get to come back.
Okay, so forgive me. I'm an engineer, so I don't like to put commitments in front of the proper design stage, as you pointed out, that this, you correctly discerned my point about design things ongoing. And so all I can say is we're working on that. We're in the process of selecting materials right now. Among other things, no windows have been selected yet. Now, as you can imagine, if you've seen pictures, there's quite a lot of glass. What does a lot of glass means? Well, a lot of glass means heat gain in the summer. A lot of glass means potential heat loss in the winter. Right now, that process, to be honest, we need to get through this stage, which is a really big stage, before we devote the design investment to those details. All I can say is that the goal here is to create a building unit that stands the test of time, that is a legacy in both visual and operational ways, that recognizes that in the future, even more so than today, I hope the price of energy is going to be higher, which is going to disincentivize its use, and that where we'll be with this is that it'll be a very efficient, tight building unit. At the same time, what we want to do is provide our residents with an experience of the outdoors coming indoors. And I think that the ultimate sustainability of a building is not only how much energy it uses, but how people feel and their relative health, both mental and physical, within that building. So trying to balance all of those things.
Okay, understood. I'm going to come back to glass and the outdoors coming indoors soon. But first, I want to ask you how you would accommodate compost. If you are using wheeled carts, or regular, whatever they are, 90-gallon carts for recycling and trash, you are actually already scheduled for regular collection, similar to a single-family home. So if you have space, it may well be possible for you to add a couple of compost bins at this time. It is unlikely that you need 15 of them, because one does not fill up one's compost bin. Each unit would not do that every week. So I'm interested to know if you thought about accommodating compost. I can check with my friends in solid waste as to whether it is true that you could have wheeled carts.
Yes, it is true.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, I think at this point, the plan would be to have them delivered to the city site.
Great.
Through the collection process, which I designed. So I'm very familiar with that process, and the 90-gallon carts, probably 2 or 3 of them is probably enough, because as you know, food waste in particular is not a huge volume.
Right.
It's quite heavy.
Yeah.
I made reference earlier to working out some design details. It turns out that one of the design details that had to get worked out, that we appreciate the help of staff, was where to put the carts on the side of the road and not interfere with fire access, because fire department wants its due in terms of aerial tower access. So that was one of the things. So there's space for that.
So there is space for compost, and that
Absolutely,
it
yeah.
is your intent to provide it. Super, thank you. So I want to highlight a couple of resident concerns, and one is that this parcel is zoned office, which allows commercial short-term rentals. And concerns have been raised by neighbors regarding the possibility that these units would be bought by investors and monetized as STRs. I wondered if you intended to use them that way, and if you intended to sell them for that use.
My expectation is these are going to be sold to owners who are going to live there themselves. We do not yet have a set of condominium documents that would define those things. So there's no there's no master deed and condominium documents that have been filed with the state that expressly prohibits that, but that's not the intention of this development.
Well, that's super. If it's not your intention, would you be willing to add that to the development agreement?
I'm reluctant to take those steps at this point because, to be honest, this development agreement, there's already, after we get through tonight, and I didn't want to upset the apple cart here, but while we've definitely agreed to the voluntary contribution to the parks, there's several other things in there that were of concern to our attorney, and we're going to be advancing to Ms. Thacker shortly. So first of all, I have to be really clear. There was never any mention of the development agreement even being needed until about a week before the original process, because my understanding from previous planning staff was that for a by right development, very often you don't do development agreements. So the whole concept of the development agreement was kind of a curveball.
Well, I'm sorry to press on a sore nerve, but I just do want to emphasize, which I need to do, even if this weren't my ward, which it is, I do need to emphasize that this is a part of town that's valued for its natural amenities, for the Argo Park, which though it's got its disadvantages in the summer at the height of beach season, is still regarded as a kind of a rustic place. And the neighbors are, I think, doing their best to be welcoming to the idea of housing. And I personally would have a sad feeling in my stomach if this were not permanent residence housing.
Yeah,
if it were,
me too.
Yeah, and I think that in terms of were I to purchase a condo there, which I won't because I wouldn't be able to afford it, but I would prefer that there was not commercial STR use in that building. Those condos are very expensive, and that would diminish their value from my perspective.
No, I understand.
So-
And if we were to live there, I think I would have the same concern.
So I understand. I know you're feeling really not happy about the development agreement, but if things feel better for you at some point and you wouldn't mind putting what you fully already intend into the agreement, that'd be great, and we'll drop that for now, but I wanted to raise it.
Okay.
Then finally, I love the idea of the outside coming in, and although I think the building's a little more colorful for me, but still, I do love the glass. I think it's going to be lovely. But this is apparently an extremely popular flightway. A lot of people go there to bird, and a lot of birds fly. And hopefully there wouldn't be the potential for the bird flying right into your house, although that has actually happened to me with a wild turkey. It was most unpleasant. And since you have not yet, no, it's okay, chosen the windows, I'm wondering if you might consider exploring the possibility of bird-resistant glass to minimize,
I don't think anybody wants to get up in the morning and find something on the
hear
deck in
it,
front of them.
find it, have it be a routine, oh
I
gosh.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Sincerely appreciate that suggestion.
Great, well, thank
Maybe
you.
owl cutouts is something that has been effective in other settings.
So anything that, if you're,
Yeah.
as you're investigating the glass
Yeah.
possibilities, understand that it is such a wildlife bit. So thank you for considering that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Any other commissioners for questions or discussion? Commissioner Mills?
There we go. Hi, thanks. Specific to the site plan, I want to say, and thanks in the staff report for the table laying out how it kind of comports with what the code calls for, so I don't see anything kind of out of the ordinary. I'll point out to the other commissioners that this, club is coming up again. That's one of the landscape modifications. That's conflicting land use buffer. This talking about where that works or where there are challenges happens a lot at this table, so
There
this
was
is
a
just
lot
another
of
example.
back and forth on that subject, and
Anyway.
some degree of uncertainty about all parties. I would want to point out that there's an easement over there. I don't know if you know this, but a very deep easement that engineering did not have record of how far down the sanitary sewer was. And no easement was in place when we bought the property. And so one of the agreements that we're making, and is memorialized in the development agreement, and it is not controversial, is that we will put an easement on the property. But it did create considerable constraints because, as I think many of you know, the deeper the pipe, the bigger the easement, because the wider the hole has to be if you're ever going to get into it. So there was a movement of the building uphill because of that. Consequently, we moved out of the conflicting land use area. So,
We actually,
Ted is correcting me on something, so I'll be quiet now.
sorry, I just wanted to mention that there was a time that a landscape modification was requested, but we had some coordination with Natural Features and developed a strategy where we eliminated that.
Okay.
We do have the required amount of plantings.
Okay, so that's no longer, it's in our motion. I guess that's a question for staff to the extent that, is it okay for us to approve it as drafted, the motion as drafted and read, or I guess it's belt and suspenders approach?
I mean, since it says the motion allows a reduction, it doesn't require them to take that reduction.
Yeah, okay.
But we can get guidance
This
from
was
staff.
laboriously worked out in November, so.
Okay.
I think it's okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
super. I just want, great.
Thanks.
I want to say that what I appreciate in looking at the renderings is I think this is a beautiful building, and it looks, the design carries through on all of the sides because it's going to be at the top of a hill and will be seen all around. And so I think it's tough to tell what is the front and the back, and I think that in this place is fitting, and I think it will be, it'll be a change to the landscape certainly, but I think it will not be kind of just a standard thing.
That is our goal, and we appreciate that comment.
One of the things that I also, this is the zoning is would allow for this land use, right? So there's a lot of things, as you know, that we ask. And one of the questions that I had in going through, especially kind of the lead up to the sustainability, is trying to understand what is sorted out and what the site plan covers that we know will be coming, and what are the things that are still being worked out. So this bio-solar roof, for example, is shown on the site plan. So this is a half question to you and a half question to staff. Just that is a requirement, yes, if it's shown on the site plan, or is it not a requirement? It is a requirement. Okay, great. On the solar in particular, one of the things that I think is really interesting is in multifamily, like how how that solar is apportioned to particular units. You're
Haven't
still
worked it out.
right, but I mean,
But yes, it is interesting.
I think that this is an interesting case study to be able to share, like how you're thinking about that, because you won't be the owner long term. You're selling, and so the idea of you making the investment up front and those solar panels going with the units. I mean, I think that that's a great. I'm curious. I'll be curious to see how it shakes out at the end. The EV charging, exceeding the EV charging spots is shown on the site plan, so those are coming. The high efficiency, well, effectively, what was in the staff report was about this, all of the units being, you can choose your own adventure, gas or electric. My question, and maybe this is to be sorted out, but have you talked to DTE and to be able to size the connection, assuming everybody chooses electric?
We have not.
Okay.
And so I think that rightfully, people pointed out that there's a point on the drawing that says we're going to expand the line. About 2/3 of the way down the building, the supply is 2 inches. It then goes to something smaller, like an 1.5 inches or something. And their requirement, if we were to take leads off of it, is that it's going to come in the far side of the building when we do make a connection. However, what I'm going to say is, when I think about this, I want to go after the things that are really, so heating, ventilation, and cooling is about 65% of the building's energy use. Hot water heating is another 30+%. You very quickly get over 97% before you get to cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the question of the quality of the grid electricity and whether today it's a better carbon choice to use natural gas, which is very possible, or it's a better choice to use electrical. My belief, and I'll be very honest, this is a high price point. We need to make the sales. I want to create as much value for people as possible, both real and perceived. I think it's a good option to have it sort of choose your own adventure, because I do think in 5 to 10 years, if we value carbon the way we should, that there might be some different choices being made about whether or not induction cooktops are the thing to go, or gas. And I fully expect a number of people are going to go right away with induction cooktops. I'm not interested in forcing that on my buyers right up front, especially if we're successful. And I want to be careful here about this ground loop heat pump. I foresee a number of adventures in trying to figure out how to get the ground loops in the ground without interfering with other things that have been very carefully negotiated. So, I'm modestly optimistic that this is going to work, because it's going to make it for a much better project. And Mr. Garber referred to all the condensers. Not a feature. Not a feature. And they wouldn't be needed in a ground loop heat pump situation, because the energy is coming from the ground. So, and in fact, one of the things I'm interested in doing is basically working out a utility deal where we have an outside investor that invests in the ground loops and essentially sells us the ground energy over a 15 or 20 year period that we buy as if we were buying it from DTE. And we stabilize the price. It's fixed for that 90+% of that energy demand. And as you know, it really is a low-hanging fruit to do that. You're basically getting, for every unit of electricity you put in, you're getting 3 or 4 additional units of energy. The leverage is amazing. So it's a 75 or 80% improvement on your overall efficiency.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that opportunity, but we got to get the wells in the ground.
Right. Well, and that was two more down on my list to just clarify that is being explored, but it's not on the site plan. And so just truth in advertising, because this is one of the things that I want to make sure, like, this may not have it may not have ground source heat pumps there, and there's nothing.
And I'll be clear, I personally put in a lot of hours on this. Our contractor is now working with the mechanical designer to figure out the loads from the cooling loads and the heating loads, and that's going to then have to be matched up.
Right.
But, I've already talked to the utility provider of this. They have a deal. They've done work in southeastern Michigan, all that stuff. So, I hope I sound like I'm serious about it, because I am, but, until I can find we can find a place to put those holes in the ground, it's not a done deal.
I appreciate you continuing to look. I just want to make sure, that's one of the things we know that's not in the site plan.
I will say, to add something to Ms. Thacker's comments about things that are on the site plan and the biosolar roof, getting to that stormwater calculation that Ted did required the green roof.
Yeah, well, and this is where, I knew that the green roof portion was part of the stormwater calculation. Solar is not, but since it's shown, it's required now. So I just wanted to verify that that's the case. It's not tied to a standard.
Yep, it is a site amenity.
Okay. I think overall, again, other than clarifying, I'm excited about this. These are the things that we can ask for. And I appreciate the thought that's gone into it. The one additional question, it is a narrow right-of-way. How have you thought about how construction might work just for neighbors either in the audience or listening in? Both for yours, kind of the people that need to be on your site, but also is this
So I know it's on the contractor's mind.
Yeah.
Beyond that, we have not had any concrete discussion, no pun intended, about how we're going to get heavy iron in there, how it's going to be excavated and whatnot. I do know that the kinds of conversations he's been having have been, well, we have X amount of dirt to move, but that'll be part of the fill. We think we can make use of this material on site. Some of the fill material that we know from this dump is probably going to have to go off site as spoil, because it's not, you can't put stuff on top of it. It's not very secure. So that's what I know. And do we want to be good neighbors? Absolutely. We don't want, don't want backup beepers at 4:30 in the morning. All that stuff is important.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing this project. I think it's really clear that you really care about Ann Arbor. You've paid a lot of attention on how the best way to develop this property. I just have a few things. Kind of picking up where Commissioner Mills left off. Do you have a plan for communication with the neighbors, just to keep them informed? You might not have all the answers right now, but
We don't have a plan right now.
Is that in your?
It seems like an important thing to do, and one of our partners, Lisa, I think, is interested in leading that effort. So
Great.
We'll talk to her, but I don't want to make commitments on her behalf about whether it's going to be every week or not.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And I'm involved in a development property in town too, and we. Initially, when construction started, we were communicating with, just sending them an email every so often, making sure they knew how to contact us. They contacted us when there was beeping on the site because they thought it was coming from us, but turns out it was someone's shed, not even us. But I think it's really helpful when people know who they can reach out to when things arise. Screens apparently work to deter birds. I don't know. There is a lot of glass. I don't know your plans for screens, but bird-safe glass I think is really expensive. But I've been told by a birding expert that screens, if there are any screens, that works. So yay. So then my last thing, I think, and we know we can't ask for this. We know that we can't ask for it. We know that it is not required. But I just think that there's really confusing language in the staff report. saying, and I think this came from you guys, like, it's going to have full electrification and natural gas hookups. That's not full electrification. I just, you know, there's a line, I think, that was from you, per the applicant, it's to encourage residents to make the switch to 100% electrification. I'm not clear how putting in gas and allowing them to choose gas would encourage them to make the switch to 100% electrification. Maybe that's not what you meant.
It's kind of like I was saying to Commissioner Mills. Oh, and it's probably not getting recorded very well, is it? You know, we're threading a needle here. And to move forward, we need to have buyers. And I'm, you know, part of the reason that I told you about our background is that we're not deep-pocketed developers. So I also have to worry about our collective commercial interests, like not blow up my retirement on a failed development. So I'm going to say that 97% is better than, in this case, is better than 100%. And the 97% refers to the greening the energy use of the other bigger picture items, which I suspect isn't what you want to hear.
Well,
but I'm just sort of telling you what the reality is.
I appreciate that. I do think, though, that as developers, and especially as someone who is a self-proclaimed expert in sustainability, like we need to be leading the market with what we know is the right thing to do. So, like, there is this misnomer out there that, like, I have to have gas, cooking is better with gas. I think the gas lobby has pushed that on consumers. I mean, induction is amazing. I just think that, obviously, you are going to do what you choose to do. I will, and then I will get off my soapbox. But I think we need to set the example, and you put in a natural gas line and it's there, you know, like you put gas in any of these condos, like that's not going to go away. So as you're going through the process, I would just encourage you, take polls of people. I mean, I think like induction cooktops have come a long way. Bosch is making great ones. I don't think that it's going to turn away your buyers if you do like demos of like how great it can be. So think about it.
No, I appreciate those thoughts, and I know where you're coming from and why you're sitting there and why you're saying this. So I understand.
It's not, none of this is easy. So I appreciate everything that you've been doing. I feel like I'm being nitpicky, but I have to be nitpicky. And thank you for introducing more housing into Ann Arbor.
Appreciate it.
Commissioner White. Oh, Commissioner Weatherby.
So let's see. While we're on that topic, I'm just going to say I think it is a bit of a missed opportunity to say, look at our green development. Hey, rich people, have a La Cornue induction stove for $50,000. You can, I mean, you know, I think there are ways to do it. I understand your point. You don't want to turn away a buyer because they have their Wolf gas stove. That's their thing. But I think there is some, it is a little disappointing. Yeah, bird-safe windows. I think there's the don't want a turkey to invite themselves to Thanksgiving dinner kind of bird-safe, and then there's also windows that are safe for birds. And I think probably looking into both of those, which are, because again, with all that expanse, you don't want, you know, a flock of warblers dead in the front lawn. New sidewalks, great, because I think a sidewalk there is going to be well used and is going to be a really good thing. Stormwater mitigation, good. Tax base for the city is good. I live across from some $1 million condos and they turn over pretty quickly, and that is really good for the city, I gotta say. So, you know, for what it's worth.
There's a sales technique for me, huh?
Yeah. You know, I mean, they were low end, now they're high end, but the city's getting a lot of money. So One of the questions I did have, and this is maybe to staff, the note that we have said that neighbors don't recall receiving the postcard, and I just wanted to make sure that that was all taken care of. I mean, I know that that's...
So city staff provides the addresses of everyone that the postcard notices are required to go to the development team, and a template, and we approve the postcard that goes out, and that's pretty much where our influence stops. They told us in writing that they sent them out. I can't guarantee that the post office delivered them all, you know? I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
This is the guy who did it.
I can't.
That guy.
And I know
guarantee
that
the post office delivered everything appropriately.
we got ours at
we did.
416 Longshore.
But you did send them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, let's see, the construction process. I do live in a place that has had a lot of construction, and I think just having a phone number or a text number for the neighbors, for a construction manager, or will save both you and the neighbors a lot of hassle, because that goes both ways. If somebody's messing with your site, you want people to be able to contact you, and you know, vice versa, because you are a resident on this site too. I think that makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference. So
That's a really good suggestion.
So I think just having, and you know, we had some conversations with some of the sites near us, and it did end up being sort of a win-win situation. Yes, there's the beeping early in the morning, but there's also like, hey, your digger is sinking into the mud, and maybe you want to deal with that sometime soon. You know? So just, I think just having a contact number for that is like for a construction manager or somebody who can actually do something is super helpful. And other than that, I think most of the other things have been covered. Obviously, you seem to think you have a market for these. So hopefully. All right.
Commissioner Wedge.
Thanks. Thanks for bringing the project. Can we bring up the site plan? I'm looking specifically at the one that was in our packet, dated 2024-02-28, and I'm looking at what appears to be page 23, which shows the garage.
Right there?
I can't see.
Sorry.
I have a screen in front of me. That is not what I see.
Just give me one moment, Commissioner Weich, to help with that.
It does look different.
You can navigate to whatever page.
So is this starting to look like what you want to see? Or do you want to see the garage? You want to see the garage plan?
It's page 23. So what planner Kelly just did was bring up the one that we have in our packet, so that we're looking at the same one. Okay, yes, it's this one. So are they able to zoom?
Sure, the control and scroll wheel should do the job.
I was going to say, how many engineers does it take to?
I've used Adobe.
If this were touchscreen, I could just do this.
This one, so you can just
Oh,
do that.
look at that.
Okay, so what I'm seeing looks like there's a wall. Well, before it went away. Great. There, on the north part of this drawing, as you come in from Longshore, there seems to be a wall that's blocking the garage there, and then there's a wall that seems to be blocking the end of that. And the material is changing on this, so it looks like it's a driveway, so we weren't sure, or rather I wasn't sure, whether this is an overhead, or can you just help understand how someone would access that?
Is my cursor in the right spot, or you?
I can't see.
Gotcha. So the dash
No,
line.
not the dash lines. So now move it to the right. No, go back up.
Oh, to the right?
Yes, stop, come down,
Okay.
stop, right there. So you see that solid
Yep. So yeah,
bump out?
there's kind of a number of things going on here. So
Thank you. Because I couldn't understand them, and I asked two architects to just help me with it, and they couldn't understand it either.
yep. So this hatching right here, this concrete, imagine that just as an extension of the alignment of the driveway. So that's all kind of at grade as you enter into the garage level. And I know you said not the dash line work, but I'm just going to kind of clarify what that is. So that represents the foundation walls of the building. So we're just showing those on a number of plans to, make sure that that's evident everywhere, especially close to the easement. And then, so this line right here is really just the limit of where this curbing and the drive enters the garage area, where that stops. On the north side of that, there's an exit man door or person door that comes out to kind of a concrete sidewalk and ends up going up to the public sidewalk below this balcony.
No doubt
terrace.
where we'd roll our curb carts for compost.
The dash lines represent where
Again,
the edge
not
of the
the dash
garage.
lines. I appreciate the.
That's where
dash
you would
lines.
enter the garage at.
Right, but so if you keep your cursor right where it is, stopping there, so that you have that solid line that's coming around. So is that just a demarcation that it's a different material from the drive, or is that actually blocking access into that
There would be an
garage?
elevation separation between where the drive, the vehicular use is, and then the next level where the door exiting the lower level is.
Okay.
Not a huge elevation separation, but it's not just demarcation, but there is going to be some type of a barrier there for vehicles and directing vehicles into the garage.
And it's mirrored at the end.
The Longshore Drive slopes away. So the first floor is basically at grade at the east end, but the garage is at grade at the west end.
So I think I'm just trying to make sure that this is not going to block access here, because one of the things that we were dealing with another developer that was on a slope was it made it hard for someone who might need assistance to make use of this access. And they had a very similar setup like you did, an underground garage with elevators that went right to the residences. And what we discovered was someone coming into the building that needed accessibility help would not be able to enter the building unless they entered the building through someone's private garage. And then they might not be able to get to where they wanted to go because the developer hadn't created a means for that to occur. So my question is trying to ensure that we're not creating an environment where we are making it impossible for someone who requires aid to enter and exit the building, unless they were coming through someone's private garage, which would then preclude them from getting to where they needed to go if they were in these two spots.
We can just flip back to the other presentation real quick.
Sure.
Okay. And show the first, which one is it?
Go down to the taskbar at the bottom, hover over the taskbar, and
Oh, there we
then
go.
click on the reader. Adobe.
So if we just go up to the first floor, it's a little bit of a misnomer since we're built into this slope and there's about 10 feet of fall, 10 to 12 feet of fall, I believe, from the east to the west on the site. There's two at-grade entries. There's one from the east There's a sidewalk that comes in between the two buildings that has an at-grade entrance to this open-air concourse that feeds the units from that level. And then there's a ramp and stairs that directly address the street to the north for those access points.
Good. Thank you for that, because I was having a problem looking at the plans and getting that question answered. I do want to come back to the construction. I know at least 2 commissioners have already asked you about it, but I work across from the site that Commissioner Hammerschmidt is involved in, and there are lots of problems. We lost a tree in our easement, and we're not quite sure who took the tree out. So one, I really do think it's important when construction gets started that whoever is managing your site reach out to your neighbors. It sounds like there is a condo association, so that might be an easy pathway, as well as to the apartments that go down on Longshore, because people will want to know what's going to happen. When you're doing your utility work, I think it would be super helpful to let the neighbors know that that utility work is coming and what impacts it's going to have on them. So we lost water 2 days. The first day, the city told us. The second day, the contractor did, and just came over and just said, hey, here's what's going to happen. Here's how long you're going to lose water. Here's what you want to do with your toilets and your piping. And it's just a small little neighborly thing, because I think your neighbors are very concerned, and rightly so, about the development and how that's going to go, because it's change in the neighborhood. That is a very tight corridor, and I think some additional consideration should be given to Mary DeLuc's comments that she made earlier about how are you going to move all those heavy equipment. So our property sits across from the development that's happening on Platt, and so they're moving huge machines into our parking lot just to turn things around. They have to move so much dirt. Those trucks line up, they block the street for hours. People don't know what to do. And so just anticipating that, I think is worth the while to be a good neighbor for them, as well as capturing the dirt that is going to go on the road. So I bike in that area. The Longshore Drive is going to get filled with debris. It is just going to happen. And so how do you plan to make that safe for bikers like myself, or when I'm biking with my kid who may not have the same kind of control that I do? So those kinds of things are important, and it really would be, I think, in the development's best interest to address those and have a solid plan for how you plan to communicate with the neighbors about that. So, absolutely. Thanks. Mr. Garber asked something. What did Mr. Garber ask that I wanted to ask you about?
EUI modeling.
What was it?
EUI modeling.
Yeah, it was the EU. Oh, no, passive housing. Why not passive housing? That's what he asked.
Haven't got there.
Can you just say more? I mean, I think you know what it means.
So,
I think I know what you mean. But there are people who are here who may not know what you mean when you say that. So that comment, while it is a sufficient answer, it is not a complete answer.
Okay. So let's start with the big picture. We want to have the most energy efficient building possible, given the design that we're pursuing, given the selection of materials. The idea is, do we choose to use any number of a half a dozen standards that allows judgment of that in a semi-objective manner, right? I personally have never found value, and we made this choice with the libraries when we built them years ago, to spend the extra 6 figures usually for the actual certification of a building, say to a LEED standard. We did, in some of the buildings that I do an Energy Star set of tests, blower doors, evaluation of the cross sections and whatnot, and it turned out that it was very, Energy Star compliant is how we described it. We did not pursue the certification. I would imagine we'll continue to do the same thing with our mechanical contractor, who that's their responsibility. And it sort of gets to this subject that we talked about earlier, which is heat gain. As you can tell, except on the top floor, there's quite a bit of overhang. So there's potential for winter sunlight, solar gain, summer shade kinds of passive design structures. But, going for a totally passive house where effectively it's so well insulated that you're heating it with the equivalent of your refrigerator compressor motor or something like that, that's not a goal we're pursuing at this time specifically. Yeah, obviously, listen, the good news is lighting-wise and things like that, technology, it's much easier to say, LED lights, 20% of the energy use, much more attractive than compact fluorescence. I mean, those kinds of things are, I think, going to be very just sort of, this is what the specification is. But there's no plans right now for specific certification.
Okay. And then I didn't see how you plan to deal with deliveries at the site. So Amazon, UPS, FedEx, are they going to just parallel park on Longshore and block the drive?
Yeah, there's space accounted for on the first floor, again, not on this drawing, for a mail and package room, for those to be walked up to that area. There's obviously drop-off areas for the office already in the office parking lot, separate.
How will Amazon know that they can park in the office parking lot and that they're going to have to walk over?
I think the way Amazon figures those things out, which is...
Well, I'll tell you how they figure it out. They park in the street.
They do it, yeah.
And then they block the street. They're going to block access to your neighbors because they're not going to, you have a driveway that's across the street from your site. And so
in the parking lots of my condominium.
Well,
so,
they don't
I mean,
they come
since
to our
there's
parking
no
lot.
sort of entry unless you're going to allow them access down your driveway and allow them to turn around, that's what they're going to do if you don't design a place for them.
That's good feedback.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? I don't have a lot to add that hasn't already been said. I mean, I think I agree with both an appreciation of the project and also some disappointment about some of the commitments to certain sustainability features. So we will cross our fingers and hope for the best. One question I had, which is maybe more directed at city staff, is that all of this conversation around construction is making me think that peak Argo Cascade season is also peak construction season, and I can imagine there being actually no access to the Cascades or limited access to the Cascades parking lot at certain points, and just how that, just putting it on the radar. I guess I don't even know how that gets negotiated. I guess you apply for certain permits to block the street, but what a mess. So there's that. And then I think all my other comments have already been taken up around sustainability and the gas connection, et cetera. So with that, any final comments? Questions? I guess one other thing is that there was some indication from the petitioner that they were going to want to make modifications to the development agreement between now and when it goes to City Council. Is that something we need to worry about or take up?
No, that's pretty typical.
Okay.
It hasn't even gone through the city attorney's office yet.
Okay.
So changes will be made. And the developers will have their input into it as well.
Okay, so we are simply voting to recommend or not recommend it as it is presented to us
today.
Before us today. Got it. Everyone's clear on that? Okay. I think then we are ready for a roll call vote. And you can have a seat if you want. You don't have to stand there. Thank you.
Commissioner Abrams.
Yes.
Commissioner Weiss.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Yes.
Councilmember Dish.
Yes.
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Commissioner Mills.
Yes.
Commissioner Weatherby.
Yes.
That carries.
All right, with that, we are moving on to item 9A, our only item of regular business for the evening. This is for 700 Tappan Street, a special exception use for City Planning Commission approval. proposal to reestablish a marijuana retailer in the existing building at 700 Tappan. The previous marijuana retailer closed in January 2023. No exterior site improvements are proposed, and the staff recommendation is approval. And we will begin with a 10-minute petitioner presentation. Welcome.
Thank you.
If the chair would just entertain a short break to tee up the presentation.
I will entertain a short break. Do you think we should break, or just pause?
Actually, if we could have 5 minutes, that would be appreciated.
Okay, we will take a 5-minute break and reconvene at 8:41. Thank you. We are resuming from break, and we are going to hear a petitioner presentation regarding 700 Toppin Street special exception use for City Planning Commission approval.
Thank you. My name is Josh Covert. I work with Meds Cafe, and I'll be presenting here today. We are looking to amend a special use that is for 700 Tappan Avenue. We're asking to have it be a marijuana retail establishment for adults over 21. We started our first store in 2019, so we're approaching our 5th year of having a cannabis retail shop, and this will be our 6th shop here in the state of Michigan. We have them in Alpena, Sheboygan, Lowell, Manistee, and Rogers City. We started leasing the property at 700 Tappan on May 27th of 2023. Our lease is set for 3.5 years. And it's, as you may know, 700 Tappin's right across from the Michigan campus area, next door to Casa Dominic's. And before it was the Green Planet, which had previously been approved as a marijuana retail establishment. It had a conditional approval based on the site plan. And we have since become tenants in the building and are seeking to renew or amend the existing special use. Let me move to the next one. We did have the public meeting. We sent out the postcards. There's a copy of the postcard that we sent out. We didn't get any responses the day of the meeting, but we did receive a call the day after the meeting from a tenant. Her name is Pat Anderson. I believe she's on Zoom today, and she could be available for questions if needed. But she was the tenant that lives in the same area and uses a parking spot that was somewhat in contention before. Our original conditional special use required us to remove a curb cut. That is where Miss Anderson parks. She parks and lives as a tenant in a building that is not ours. It's not part of our establishment, but it is part of that same district there. And she stated that she wants us to be there. She likes it when that building is occupied. It's a better experience for her. And we indicated to her that we have no plans to use that existing parking spot. That's for her use only. And if you notice, when we did the site plan on the cover sheet, we have changed it since the original cover sheet. Originally, it stated there were up to 5 parking spots that could be used by Meds Cafe. And that was amended on the cover sheet when we redid our new submission to state that it would be 3 spots. And those 3 spots are spots in a parking lot that's from our landlord that leases to us and does not include the parking spot in, I would say, behind us. The other point of contention originally was the asphalt that was alongside the building, alongside of Monroe Street. That we have subsequently removed. And this kind of goes into that. As part of us moving in, there was this asphalt that was an issue and needed to be removed. And you can see it was a non-permeable surface asphalt that could have potentially also been used as parking. And so we have since replaced the non-permeable surface with the permeable surface, the pavers. We pulled all the proper permits and had a soil engineer ensure our compliance with the regulations and standards. Then we also went ahead and put a parking barrier in place over top the pavers. And that's, I think it's approximately 8 feet long, several feet tall. It's filled with dirt. And I have kind of good news. We have plants in there now. Right there when you see the picture, there's no plants. It kind of doesn't look super great. But that was also taken a while back with the weather. We subsequently have put plants in there, and we now have some nice spring plants and flowers that are in the planter. We also have a sign that's placed indicating that it's a tow-away zone. We have also added